Hello, YouTube. My name is Alan, and it's that time once again. Let's talk some metal. Hope everybody's year is off to a pretty good start. For this video, I've received some VCLT stuff in the mail that some thank yous are definitely in order for. Going to show that off in just a little bit. I've also picked up just a few random things here and there at the very end of 2022 and at the beginning of 2023. So thought I'd take a moment just to kind of, show what has arrived lately. Something for 2023 that I'm trying to do is cut back a bit on how much stuff I'm ordering and purchasing. I picked up a lot of records, especially in the second half of 2022. There were several kind of cool collections that showed up locally and online, and I was able to buy chunks of them, which was great. But it meant that I had a lot of stuff come through. Some of it only got played a few times before I had to kind of put it away and move on to the next few things. So kind of coming into 2023 with the mentality that I want to go back, spend more time with the stuff I got last year and further back in the collection as well. Not be pressing quite so hard to order lots and lots of stuff. Look at, spending a little less money, spending a little more time with the records that I've already got. There's still going to be plenty of cool new releases that I'm going to want to pick up. And I'm sure I will stumble into some cool stuff in the wild that, hey, when you find it, you buy it or you regret it later. So I'll still be picking things up, but I want to be a little more mindful about how much stuff I'm picking up. And if I've already found a lot of stuff recently, I don't need to go window shopping on Discogs. That way leads to madness and a very, very unhappy wallet. I'm going to try to keep the wallet a little bit happier here in 2023. We'll see how long this lasts anyway. So, what has been showing up lately? Well, made a visit to one of the local record stores and walked out with this. It's the first Behemoth album, Sventivith, or Storming Near the Baltic. This is just a later reissue on Back on Black Records. So this is the first full length that Nurgle and Company did back in the 90s. This is when they were still very much in their Nordic black metal phase. Behemoth's kind of a weird band for me. Historically, I've never paid any attention to them. I didn't ignore them for any reason. I just never was interested in checking them out. Over the past few years, I don't know, 2-3 years maybe, I keep stumbling across cheap Behemoth albums here and there. I'll find one at a used bookstore. I'll find one at a used bin at a record store for like $5 or $6. And at those kind of prices, I'm willing to give most things a chance, most heavy metal things anyway. And they're always a band that interests me just enough that I'm willing to buy the next album that I stumble across too. So the first few I found were more recent ones from their kind of technical death metal years. But lately I've also found a couple of their earlier ones when they were still in the black metal mode. And yeah, these are actually pretty good too. First impression here is that, this is a very solid, heavily influenced by the Norwegian style of, early 90s black metal. But yeah, Nurgle and Ball did it quite well here. So thought it was a cool pickup. I'm willing to take a chance on some more Behemoth here and there. Let's see. Different record store, different day. A couple of things stumbled across. One was one of the Knox Mistium albums that I didn't have. This was their Black Metal Part 2, Addicts. I had this back in the day, and at some point I got rid of it while thinning things out. Obviously, Blake Judd's history is well documented, not a pleasant individual to deal with by almost all accounts. Knox Mistium did do a lot of pretty cool music and albums, though. I like a lot of their stuff from around this period, so didn't mind picking this one back up for $5. Same store also had a new copy of the Summerlands album that a lot of folks have talked about from 2022. This one's called Dreamkiller. Played this a few times. I'll probably talk about it in more depth in another video. On first impression, I like it. Can't say I'm instantly blown away by it the way some folks are. I also have to wonder Summerlands. Summer has 2 M's in it. This only has 1 M in it. But everyone says Summerlands. Kind of looks like Sumerlands, but that's kind of weird sounding. So the name is irritating me slightly. I'm not sure what's up with that. Maybe they're just trying to go full-on retro 1980s mode and misspell part of their name? And if so, well played, gentlemen, well played. But yeah, traditional 80s metal, a lot of folks are comparing this to the classic Ozzy albums. I think it compares pretty nicely to a lot of the classic 80s Dio albums as well. Not bad. Maybe it just needs to grow on me a bit. We'll see how it ages. All right, next up, some mail order stuff. I got into the Discogs again. I know. But was really looking for one thing in particular. That, of course, turned into three things. I know, I'm a sick little monkey. But we did keep it to three, which I thought that's a step forward. It's progress. The one I was looking for and found was this, Abysmal Grief. I heard Kellen and Craig Zoller talk about this band a little bit in their Best of 2022 review series, which Kellen is putting up in segments. I think they discussed this in the first segment. Might have been the second, but I'm pretty sure it's in the first. This wasn't a band they were talking about from 2022, however. This just kind of came up in reference to another band they were talking about, but the way they described this, it definitely caught my interest. It's like Italian, doom, weird. These are words I like to hear together. So I checked out some of it on YouTube, and yeah, it definitely checks all the boxes for the classic weird Italian horror doom sound. The picture on the front cover of this album is a still from an Italian horror film. I think the director's name is Giallo, maybe. The album was something like The Seven Bloody Brides or The Seven Bloody Sisters. Seen a couple of different translations, and I don't know Italian horror movies at all, so sorry if I'm butchering things here just a bit. This is their third album from 2013. I had previewed again, some of it on YouTube. Really liked what I was hearing. I looked around just to see how much it would cost, how hard it was to find. Turns out it was kind of hard to find. There weren't a lot of distros in the US that had much of anything by the band, and I only found one person with a copy of this on Discogs, and it was only $10, so I was happy to pick it up. Haven't even had a chance to play it yet. We'll give it some time. Once it was in my cart, I, of course, had to go check and see what else the seller had. This is where you get in trouble on Discogs, people. Just get in, get the album, and get out. But you're thinking to yourself, you're there. It's in the cart. You're ready to hit click, and you're like, but I'm paying shipping for one disc. If I bought another disc, it's like I wouldn't have to pay any shipping at all. They've got you. They've got you in their claws. So yeah, I did find a couple of other things from the same seller. Picked up this. This is the third Runespell album. It's called Voice of Opprobrium. Voice of Opprobrium. Runespell, Australian one-man black metal project. Recently picked up a split by them and Forest Mysticism. Really liked both halves of it, so it's kind of in the back of my head. I'd already thought to myself, if I come across a full-length Runespell album, I want to pick it up. And, well, here one was. So that worked out pretty nicely. I think this is their third of their 4 full-length albums. Have not spun it yet. Be getting to it soon. We'll see how it turns out. Last thing that made it into the cart before I just finally said, nope, no more. That's enough. I picked up this. It's Methotins, Carved in Stone. It's all 3 of their studio albums in one CD set. I had 1 or 2 of these back in the day. Methotin, of course, Norwegian, sort of early Viking metal, very fast, melodic stuff. Like it quite a bit, but the CDs long since have left the collection. I'd seen this once or twice before from other vendors and thought, that's kind of neat. Maybe I'll pick it up. But it had never quite made the cut. It's always one of those last things out of the cart when you realize that there's way too much stuff in this cart and something's got to go. But this time it did make the cut. Like their style. I will say Viking metal like this is something that, while I enjoy it, it's usually got to be in small doses. After I spin one of these albums once or twice, I'm kind of good for a while. Sometimes the style is just a little too repetitive. There are only so many songs I can listen to at a time that are all about Hail Odin, Raven, Raven this, Valhalla that, Yarg's Mark, Schmerd Mark, Sverdva Phelps. Okay, It's good, but I'm done for now. So I'll get through all three of these, but this is not something for me to binge listen to. Just going back and listening to an old favorite that I didn't have on the shelf anymore. Something I thought was interesting, even though this is a 3 CD set, it actually is in a regular sized jewel case. It has a center panel that flips open and has 2 discs on it. So a little weird. I've never had one of these before. I've been getting some of the other like 3-disc compilation sets that have come out in recent years, like the Opeth set, the Mayhem set, and those are usually in those double thick CD cases. I was kind of expecting the same thing with this, so it threw me for a loop a little bit when I saw it was in a normal case, but yeah, just a different way of packaging it. All right, last one that I ordered from a different vendor was the new The Chasm CD. This came out in 2022. Had been meaning to order it. I missed it when it first came out on physical format. I downloaded it from the band when they first released it on Bandcamp. The physical stuff was coming later. Waited and just completely missed the drop. When I checked back, they were already sold out on CDs. I'm sure they can press up more and restock them at some point. But again, poking around on Discogs, bad, naughty Alan. Gotta stay out of the Discogs. Somebody had it for $10. It's like, sure, absolutely, we'll go ahead and pick that up. Played it a couple of times. It's classic The Chasm material. If you like David Corchado's work in the past, there is no reason you wouldn't dig this as well. All right, so that's the only stuff I've bought. Been very good, kind of keeping it under control here for the New Year's resolution, I suppose. Now, some other stuff is shown up here, but this was unexpected. A VCLT box was sent to me by Scott Wilcox. Scott comments on a lot of videos, both on my channel, over at Heavy Metallurgy and stuff. Nice guy, always has good insights on things. And he has recently started his own channel. I say recently, at this point, it's probably been a month or more. He's got several videos posted. I've watched several of them. Enjoy his style. He's talking about some different topics that are kind of interesting, showing off some cool records as well. The channel is called No Solution. So I will try to remember to put a link down below. If I forget, somebody please leave a comment and say, hey, dummy, where's the link to Scott's channel? And I'll get it edited back in there so folks can go check it out. Please do check it out. When folks, make these videos, especially when you're first trying to get a channel started, it is very nice to get some comments and some feedback about what you're doing. And even just, have a few more people view and a few more subscriptions each week. It's a nice thing. Very few people are trying to do this full time. Nobody in the VCLT, I don't think, has delusions of living off of the ad revenues that this is generating or anything. But it's still nice to get a little feedback, see the channel, the subscriptions grow a little bit, just to know that folks are actually watching what you're doing and enjoying it a bit. So go check out Scott's channel. There's some other ones that have started up lately too that you should check out. Depeche Commode does a lot of comments over on the Heavy Metallurgy broadcasts. He's got a channel up and running now. Also, Black Leather Eyes has started doing more videos recently. I believe his name is Jason. My apologies if it's not, but he shows off lots of cool stuff as well. He's done some videos in the past, but he's on screen now talking more and showing stuff, and I've really enjoyed his content. And there are others as well. Apologies if I don't know your channel or if I'm just not thinking of it off the top of my head. But the take-home assignment is go support folks that are starting their own channel. It takes a little work, and it can be a little bit daunting to sit down in front of the camera and put yourself on YouTube for the entire world to scrutinize and see what you are and aren't doing. So help these folks out and give them the old thumbs up. So anyway, Scott had contacted me and asked if I had a copy of a certain Nocturnal Rites album. And it was one I actually didn't have. He's like, oh, well, I've got an extra copy. I'd just like to send you, just VCLT. He's like, oh, great. That's really cool. Thank you. So he sent it, but he also sent a bunch of other stuff with it as well. So yeah, one was, I thought, going to be one CD, turned into like 7 or 8. The Nocturnal Rites disc is this one, New World Messiah. This is their 5th album from the early 2000s. Probably came out around 2003, 2005. I heard it when it came out back in the day. It's very solid European power metal. It's exactly what you'd expect from Nocturnal Rites. I didn't have this one anymore when I had thinned out power metal CDs many years ago. It was one of those that's good, but it didn't get played nearly as much as the first four, so I had to let my old copy of it go. This was a mistake because this is a band that my wife really enjoys. And so she's like, "Where's New World Messiah?" I'm just like, "I love you." She's like, "Oh, you suck." So it's good to have this back on the shelf. Scott, the wife, is happy and approves of this. So cool to hear that one again for the first time in many years. Scott sent some other stuff. I think what it looks like, Scott, you had some different Divebomb stuff. And Divebomb's one of those labels that always has neat looking stuff, but I always am bad to forget to check them out. So, for example, he sent me a couple of discs by a band called Eradicator. Neat looking, had never checked them out. Let me check the titles. This one's called Obscura. Eradicator's a UK thrash band, very Metallica influenced, is what I'm hearing on first listen with these. Another Eradicator CD from Scott, and this one is called Edge of Humanity. One of these is a little less Metallica influenced than the other. Still getting used to them, so I don't recall which is which right offhand. But yeah, if you're looking for just, a solid UK thrash in that kind of Bay Area influence style, Eradicator seems like a good listen. Next in the box from Scott, this was a band I had never heard of. I don't even remember seeing this on the distro for looking at the Divebomb site. A band called Wolfhook. It's WULF, and the U has umlauts to make it look even cooler. So Wolfhook. Not sure where this name comes from. Is there some kind of like tool that you use to hook wolves if you're like working for, I don't know, Rocky Mountain Animal Control? I don't know. Regardless, the album's called The Impaler. This actually turned out a really fun listen. I've played this a whole bunch of times already. Very upbeat, nice, cool guitar work throughout it. A lot of good, catchy songs, high energy stuff. Made a really fun listen for several days back and forth on my commute. Looks like this is the only thing the band really did. They're not around anymore. But yeah, the band was from Michigan, by the way. Excellent listen. It's still on the Divebomb distro I checked. It's discounted, so it's only a few bucks. If, you're looking for some energetic, catchy, traditional metal, Wolfhook's a good listen. I would pick this one up. So, Scott, thank you very much. This is the kind of thing that, I would never have ordered randomly because it just would never have caught my eye, but it's a really good listen. Glad I got to hear it. The other thing that Scott sent was several volumes of the Masters of Metal series. So this is something Divebomb Records did for several CDs. I think they all came out around 2015 to 2017. I already had the first volume of this and talked about it in a previous video. And Scott either saw that and remembered which volumes I had and didn't, or we just got very, very lucky and the stars aligned, and he sent me the 4 volumes that I didn't have. So the idea on these was that Matt over at Divebomb, they basically would pick about 4 bands and put some tracks by each of them. It wasn't always an even distribution. Some here on volume one band had 3 tracks. Some of them had, 3 or 4. So it varies a little bit. And in some cases, what they were doing was taking like an entire EP or an entire demo that the band had did and, sort of reissuing, repressing it. I guess the idea was, to sort of showcase some up-and-coming bands and give them a chance to get a little more exposure. Neat idea. The discs are really cheap. They're about, $5 or $6 a piece on the Divebomb site. So it's a really good way to get to check out several bands all at once for very little. I had picked up volume 1 because it features 2 bands I like a lot, Crypt Sermon and Riot City. With Crypt Sermon, you get, as far as I know, these are demo takes on some tracks. One of these, Temple Doors, showed up on, I believe, their first album. The other 2 tracks are unreleased to my knowledge, at least. Same with Riot City. Burn the Night, this is a demo take on a track from their first album. At least one of the other tracks is unreleased, so kind of cool to hear some other stuff by the bands. The other bands on here, Hellraiser's decent traditional metal, and Old Wolf sounds a little bit like Corsair if you made it a little more metal and a little less, 70s rock. So I always enjoyed Volume 1, and yeah, big thank you to Scott for sending all 4 of the other volumes. So just a real quick run through, because I haven't gotten to spend a lot of time with these yet, but wanted to shout out what was on each one. And I thought I had them in order, but I didn't. Shame on me. Let's see here. Volume 2, the purple one. First band is Blazing Rust. This is a Russian band doing sort of, a classic Iron Maiden kind of thing. Only 2 tracks, but Blindfold is actually really good. Nice, catchy, memorable, anthemic tune for sure. Carriage. This is a band from Virginia. They seem to have a horror vibe going on. All the song titles and stuff have a very horror theme. One thing that's nice about these Masters of Metal discs that I did not mention before is that in all the cases, Divebomb did take the time to actually put together real booklets for these. So you get pictures of the band, you get lyrics for a lot of the songs, you get, some promo shots of the band. So yeah, Carriage, seems to be going for a little bit of a horror metal vibe. Lots of songs about blood and corpses and, upside down crosses and stuff like that. It was a band that I meant to bring up on the recent Heavy Metallurgy stream about horror in heavy metal. And it was in the stack, and we just never quite got to that part of the stack. But the songs are not bad. There's nothing theatrical in the music. They're not using, spooky voices or tons of organ effects or anything like that. They're doing pretty straightforward heavy metal, just lots of lyrics about horror movie stuff. Then let's see. Oath of Woe is kind of Candlemass influenced doom, pretty good. And the last one, Warlock, is pretty straightforward traditional metal, but done really well. I liked the Warlock tracks quite a bit. So yeah, this was a very good volume. A lot of cool stuff on it. Volume 3. This one starts off with Hellstorms, Hell on Earth. Probably wasn't necessary to have all of those words in the name. You probably could have gone with Hellstorm or Hell on Earth and been just fine. But this was a band from North Carolina, and it features Brian Williams on guitar, who obviously has done a lot of guitar work for October 31st over the years. I've seen Brian play live with October 31st once or twice. He's a really fun guitarist to watch, really, really good, lots of, energy live. So it was really cool to be like, oh, that's where that is familiar from. I knew it rang a little bell. It took me a couple of minutes to put it together, but the songs are really good. They're exactly what you'd expect. Very high energy, guitar driven, heavy metal, great stuff. Definition. Get it? Definition. There's a joke there. It's a Polish thrash band. Yeah, decent thrash metal stuff. Sanctifier, pretty good traditional metal stuff. There's a connection from Sanctifier. I think one of the guys there was in the band Unleash the Archers. Might need to double check me on that. But yeah, so kind of a connection to a bigger, better known band, but I like the Sanctifier tracks. Also Weapon Lord. Another kind of slightly strange name, but their tracks are very, very good. Again, pretty high energy traditional metal stuff. So some really good stuff on here. Moving on to Volume 4, pretty quick. With Volume 4, you have Substratum, which, as a geologist, I kind of like the name. As a heavy metal fan, I'm a little confused why you would call your band Substratum, but hey, it's not my band, it's yours. Not bad stuff, kind of traditional heavy metal, a little forceful, a little muscular. One track's a little bit party. A couple of the members have moved on to Solicitor, who made an album a couple of years ago that got a decent amount of hype in new wave of traditional heavy metal circles. So yeah, the vocalist, I think her name is Amy something. She appears on these tracks and is also on the Solicitor LP. Next up, we have Outcast. Seems like decent, pretty straightforward heavy metal. I liked the track Spiraling Down. Don't remember too much about them right off. The Volcana tracks, also pretty good. Sahara Snow, this is like the one dud in the series for me so far. They're a UK band. They're have kind of a traditional metal sound. They're going for something a little heavier and mid-paced than a lot of the bands on this series, which is fine. It's just that it didn't quite seem to hit the mark. Just seemed a little bit plain. It didn't quite click the boxes. Maybe it will on subsequent listens. And then the fifth and last volume. Let's see. This one has a couple of Chicago bands featured. One of them is Satan's Hallow. They've got some connections to groups like High Spirits, and one of the other bands on here actually. Only two songs, but both really good. Liked the Satan's Hallow tracks quite a bit. There's a band on here called Adriet. It's a band from Spain. Pretty good traditional metal. They have one feature in the vocals that I tend to associate with bands that sing in Spanish, and this may be unfair or just a very small sample size on my part. Some other bands I've heard sing in Spanish tend to pronounce each word in almost kind of a staccato pattern. So they sound like, this is the song that I am singing now, and I am still going. And it doesn't ruin the music or anything, but it makes the songs a little bit choppy to listen to sometimes. I don't know if it's a fact of Spanish, English translation, something gets lost there when you're trying to write and sing lyrics. I'm not really sure. The music's not bad at all. It's just that particular vocal styling that comes up does, throw me off a bit. Then we've got Terrifier. To be honest, don't remember too much about Terrifier. They also may have had a link to like a member who was playing in a bigger band, but I'm drawing a blank on who it was. And finally, Tiger Fight. These tracks were pretty decent. This was another Chicago band that shared members with Satan's Hollow. Some of the folks had like performed live with High Spirits and some other Chicago area acts as well. So this one also not a bad volume. It may be following a pattern that as you get a little deeper in the series, there's not quite as many top-notch tracks going on. And that is pretty common for this type of series, especially with several volumes being put out in just about a 3-year window. Sometimes you do start to run out of, like really top-notch stuff, that you want to showcase. Volume 1, you've got Riot City and Crypt Sermon, two bands that have gone on to do very well. Later on, you're doing bands that maybe only have a demo out, or bands that have already disbanded even, or or put on hold. But overall, it's a really cool series. If you haven't checked those out, next time you order something from Divebomb, consider adding one or two of them to the cart. A big thank you to Scott for sending me all this cool stuff. That was really, really nice of you. I appreciate it quite a bit. All right, last thing to show off here. I did have one other order of CDs that got a little buried in the stack. This is pretty straightforward and won't take but a moment. Writing Easy Records had a post-holiday sale, and that allowed me to pick up the more recent volumes in the Brown Acid series. This is a long-running series they're up to volume 15 at the end of 2022. They tracked down a lot of these obscure late 60s and 70s. Every now and then a track strays into the early 80s, but really focusing on the, you can call it proto-metal, bonehead material, hard rock, acid rock, psych rock, any of that kind of, underground sounds that would have been associated with heavy music through the late 60s and 70s. But these are, very small time bands. They released like one single or two singles and then disappeared, or they made one really obscure album in 1971 before, the band disintegrated, stuff like that. What's pretty neat is that they actually do always try to track down the bands and compensate them for putting their music on. I mean, they could easily skip that, and 99% of these bands would never know the difference. But yeah, it is cool they take the time to go find members of the band, get permission to put this on, and give them something in return for it. Only thing I'll say about these 3 volumes is it seems like on first listen, a lot of the tracks included on these 3 volumes feature stuff that is more late 60s and very early 70s stuff compared to some of the other volumes in the series. And I actually found that worked out pretty well. There were a lot more of the tracks on these 3 that I made notes on as like this one's quite good, actually. So is this one. So is this one. These volumes tend to be pretty short. They're rarely more than 40 minutes, usually about, 8 to 10 songs each. Some volumes are a little better than others, but yeah, all three of these I thought, had some very cool tunes on them that I'll revisit. All right, so that's the bottom of the stack. That's all I've got for now. And again, may not be doing as many collection update videos in the near future, but I'm quite okay with that. I've got enough of a collection back there to listen to and enjoy, and lots of ideas for videos that I can make based on that stuff. You don't have to go out and buy lots of stuff just to make a new video about. Absolutely not. I know the collection update videos are popular and folks like to watch them, but there's plenty of other cool topics we can talk about instead. And now, let's talk metal in the comments down below. Are there any cool things that you have found here? Maybe you got something as a last minute sale. Maybe you took a little bit of holiday money and spent it on a record you'd really been wanting to pick up. Maybe you found something right here, got the new year off to a good start. Maybe you've already found a new release that you really like, something that's come out in the first few weeks of 2023. Hey, leave a comment down below. Let everybody else know what you found. If it's a new release, point to the rest of us in the right direction. Maybe we'll go check it out as well. All right, that's going to do it for this video. So everybody, take care of yourself. And as always, keep banging your head. And again, a big thank you to Scott for the VCLT.